Today we'll have Jessica's three-generation Disneyland trip. That's coming up on this episode 474 of WDW Prep to Go. Hello and welcome to WDW Prep to Go, where we talk strategy and ideas for people planning their Disney World trips, and we have lots and lots of trip reports. I am your host, Shannon Albert from WDWPrepSchool.com. Thank you for being here for episode 474. Today is a trip report. This one's with Jessica, who is no stranger to Disneyland, but she had lots of special events planned for this trip. So we're going to talk about that. Plus, she shares her budget at the very end if you're curious about how much it all costs. As always, a reminder to follow on social media. And if you want to be a guest like Jessica, the only way to do that is using the SpeakPipe information in the show notes of every episode. If it works out with our schedule, somebody on my team will reach out to you to get your pre-trip and post-trip books so I can chat with you. Without any further ado, here are my chats with Jessica. Welcome to the podcast, Jessica.
Hi, happy to be here.
We're talking on Saturday, July 26th, and I understand you're headed to Disneyland.
Yes, we head out on Wednesday.
What's that date?
July 30th.
July 30th through what?
Oh, we will come back on August 3rd, Sunday.
Okay.
Yes.
And have you been to Disneyland before?
Yes, this is my 16th time.
Wow.
Yeah, so I live in the Pacific Northwest, so it's always been a hop, skip, and jump away.
Okay, so I feel like we all have our home parks. Is Disneyland your home park?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so you kind of know what to expect then.
Well, a little bit, although with all of the 70th celebration things, which is the focus of our trip, I'm still a little nervous as a planner. So
Yes, because there's some new elements as well. Okay, who's going on this trip?
yeah, so my husband, Adam, our 4-year-old daughter, Meryl, and then my parents, Nana and Papa.
Okay. All right. And have your parents ever been?
Yes, they honeymooned at Disneyland, and they took us, of course, growing up, and then they still do some side trips by themselves. So
Okay. I figured some of those 14 trips had to have included them.
yes.
Okay. And what kind of tickets do you have?
Yeah, so we are doing our typical approach. It's a 3-day park hopper with Lightning Lane multi-pass.
3-day hopper with lightning lanes.
Yep, they had a good promotion because of the 70th / the slow summer in tourism. So, but it
Was
just happened
that promotion through Costco or something else?
I wish. I asked our sweet travel advisor after the Costco deal came out, and she said, "You're about $50 plus or minus. I'd be happy to comp it on a gift card if you'd like." And I said, "No, we like supporting small business, so we'll just stick with what we have." But that Costco deal is slapping, and yeah,
It's so good. Was that only in California or other Costcos? Do you know?
So I think it's mostly been, it was online for like one day this summer, but mostly it's been West Coast, including Arizona, I think. So
Okay, but also you, right? You're Pacific Northwest?
yes, yeah. So when the Costco deal came out, I went out to my office. I have a team of about 14, and I said, just if you want to go to Disneyland before December, this is the way to do it. And one of my managers ended up booking a trip, and she actually just took her daughter 2 weeks ago. So
Okay. But your deal sounds like it was almost that price.
yeah, it was pretty good. And we also we booked our hotel rooms right when they announced the specials for the hotel as well. So we're staying on site this time.
Okay, which hotel you stayed at?
We will be staying at the Disneyland Hotel.
The best.
Yes.
They're all good, but that one's really good.
And I will say though, this is my 16th trip. I've only stayed on site twice, and it was the last time we went in February and this time. So you can definitely get a good deal staying off site. I think sometimes you can actually get to the park faster staying at some of those Harbor Boulevard hotels. But having a small child, my husband especially loves being in the bubble. So
yeah. It is nice, especially if you can find a deal, because that is often a huge difference between on-site and right across the street on Harbor.
Yeah, like it's the difference of like a dessert party or Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique or a tour. Like it just depends on what you want to do with your trip.
Okay, so then Wednesday, July 30th, I assume you're flying there.
Yes, I think I Probably took advantage of the cheapest flight because I was like, why are we leaving at 7 a.m., which means we have to leave our house at 4 a.m. to get to the airport. But yeah, so we'll arrive at Santa Ana, John Wayne at about 9:30.
Okay. And can't get much closer than John Wayne. And you have the full day ahead of you because you're starting so early.
Yeah, so we'll take a lift to the hotel, and we actually were able to reserve a cabana at the pool that day. When we went to our trip back in February, my daughter was like so miffed because we had a pool view and she didn't understand why I hadn't packed her swimsuit. And I
Yeah.
was like, sweetheart, the pools are heated, but the lifeguards are literally wearing sweatsuits. So yeah, so really looking forward to a day of just monorail water slides. And I bought a new book. And so we're just excited to have that. We'll have that cabana until 6 o'clock that night.
And in terms of car seat.
Oh, yeah. So we travel quite a bit and invested in a Pico B travel seat. And so my husband is the pro. So we'll be bringing our Bob stroller down and we have that car seat and he'll just pop it in. It takes about 3 minutes to do. So,
Okay. So that's something you're bringing with you. And you have the stroller, you said. So, okay. So this day is cabana, hotel, monorail.
yep.
That's
We'll,
it.
we'll do dinner at Din Tai Fung at 7:30 and also go to the World of Disney or whatever the Disney store is in downtown Disney, because my husband really wants to do the Magic Key experience. And
Mhm.
my daughter would she's already learned about the bubble wands with the changing character heads. So we'll try to do all of our shopping that night. So we're ready in the morning to get into the parks.
Okay. All right. So Thursday, July 31st, are you a rope dropper?
I am, as much as we try to be, we'll try to be at the park as close as 7:30 as we can. They have the new entry gates. So again, that's something we haven't done before. I don't think it should be a problem, but yeah,
Which park?
oh, sorry, Disneyland is open early that day.
Okay. Oh, so that's early entry?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then what are your priorities on this day?
Yeah, so we're kind of with us traveling in July, we typically don't do that. Try to do some of what is left of a shoulder season in Disneyland. So we'll prioritize early morning touring. We really want to do Fantasyland and Tomorrowland. And my daughter's request, she wants to do Tiana's Bayou Adventure and Big Thunder Mountain as many times as she can. So we'll also try to make our way over there before going back to the hotel for a pool and a rest break. And then when we come back to the park, our reason for booking this trip was to take advantage of all of the 70th anniversary offerings. I think the celebration is for 16 months, but this was really only our window to make it. And so we want to make sure we catch the cavalcade. We're doing the plaza dining package so we can get reserved viewing for Paint the Night that evening. But those are our must do's. And then the rest of the time, we'll just try to fill in other rides. It's on my list to try to do the Davy Crockett's canoes. I've never done that in all of my times there. And so that's my one wish other than seeing Paint the Night when we're in the parks. So
Yes. I've never done the canoes either, but that's personal choice.
yeah, we'll see how it goes. I was looking at the app and they're like, it's a 10-minute experience. And I was like, but we're all rowing. I hope I have a full boat. Or canoe, excuse me. Yeah.
Okay. And have you seen Paint the Night before?
I have. I think I saw it at the 60th celebration, and then they brought it back to DCA for a hot minute. So I think when my husband and I went for our 1-year anniversary trip, we watched it at DCA, and basically that's when they did the press release in December. I think they did the press release on December 5th with what everything was. I was looking through my emails. I was like, oh yeah, I emailed our travel advisor on December 6th saying we want to go in July. So it's wonderful.
And you have the viewing party for that.
Yes.
Okay. Friday, August 1st.
Yeah, so that will be early entry at DCA. Our approach is just trying to do the things we'd like to do twice in that day during early entry so we can use our Lightning Lane multi-pass later. So we typically head over to Web Slingers, the Spider-Man ride, try to do Soarin' and Toy Story Midway Mania. And so we'll just try to first start over in Avengers Campus, head over to Soarin' and then make our way around Pixar Pier before going to the Grand Californian because we have an 11:30 brunch reservation with Storytellers Cafe, or yes, whatever Mickey's Adventure Brunch is.
And have you done that character meal before?
We haven't. We try to mix one into the mix every time we go. And so I was specifically excited for brunch because they offer chilaquiles. And yeah, I guess you could say that's the other thing on my list I want to do. So yeah, we'll do that
Come,
and then back to the hotel.
come visit me in Mexico. There's chilaquiles everywhere.
Oh, exciting. Yes.
Okay, so brunch is storytellers, and then is there going to be another afternoon break on this day?
Yep. We'll go back to the hotel and either swim or rest and then head back to the park, I think around 3:30. Just trying to round out rides we didn't do. Most likely we'll do Cars Land during that time. There's also a Pixar parade that I'd like to try to catch. So we'll do that. And then we have a dessert party for the first World of Color showing that night.
Okay.
And that typically serves our family well. My mom will be in a scooter. She doesn't use one day to day, but for trips like this where you're putting in 12 miles on your feet, it helps get around. But usually by our second day of like full touring, it's nice to sit and have a snack and just kind of rest a little bit. So
yeah, I feel like we often talk about older kids that aren't used to strollers using them during trips because it's so many miles, but we don't often talk about older adults that are the same situation.
yeah,
Like,
and she's a good sport. So like sometimes we crisscross to take advantage of lines. And especially like I don't think people realize like a lot of specifically Disneyland was built before ADA accommodations. And so it can be specifically challenging in a scooter, like the accommodations for like she'll typically park and then stand in the queue line with us. But it's different because the roads are more narrow. The ride queues weren't built to accommodate those types of things. And so like I just even know and I've traveled with people in scooters before, it's a lot of like coordinating and just even helping them like merge into traffic and things like that. So it's nice to worry about that as much at California Adventure based off of when it was built. So
yeah, it's newer, so it had to be built that way.
yeah.
Okay. And then Saturday, August 2nd?
Yeah, so this is what we typically do. We will actually park hop. So we buy the park hop tickets just because entertainment can be canceled due to weather. And like I actually might Friday night hop over to Disneyland to watch Paint the Night, the late show one more time. But so we'll start at Disneyland with early entry and we'll try to prioritize like some of the Fantasyland rides we most likely wouldn't have done on Thursday. And again, we'll do the family favorites. So like Pirates, Big Thunder Mountain, Galaxy's Edge, those types of things. So I think the plan is to tour at Disneyland and then head back to DCA to do, oh, actually, no, we're going to go back to the hotel and swim and rest. And
Got to take advantage of the awesome pool.
Yes, yes. Hopefully I'll have finished my book by then, but you never know.
And then that evening you go to DCA.
Yep. So they have they redid the Disney Junior show. So it now aligns with the new Mickey Clubhouse Plus that just released on Disney Plus, which we've already watched a few episodes of. So I specifically want to catch that show. And we'll also ride Monsters, Inc. That typically is not on my ride list, but it's going away to make way for Avatar World of Water. So we'll say our goodbye to Drew Carey, covered by a hazmat suit. And yeah, just probably do Radiator Springs Racers again on a single pass, those types of things.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll also hop back to Disneyland.
Okay. I was going to ask you when those park hoppers were going to come in handy, but of course, you can choose to go back and forth anytime you want.
Yeah. Yeah. So we sandwich DCA typically in the middle of Disneyland on our last day. So we will go back to Disneyland. You know, this trip, I had asked my parents, do you want to try to catch Fantasmic? And they're like, we're up for whatever. My husband really wanted to try the nighttime gathering experience at Docking Bay 7. So that's what we'll be heading to at 8 o'clock. So we'll go to Disneyland, again, try to fill out some rides, and then we'll head to Galaxy's Edge for an 8 o'clock reservation. The idea there is you kind of get a bento box, like Galactic Star Cruiser type food. You enjoy that, and then you can go to a reserved viewing area, and they basically run the fireworks show over the topography of Galaxy's Edge. It's a different music, and then they do a projection show called Skywalker Saga, I believe. And so that's just something we haven't done yet. So we will catch that, and then I'm going to try to beeline it over to Fantasyland to catch the World of Tapestry. This will be our late night. Like we typically will try to go to bed after like earlier evening entertainment, but this is we'll push it to the limit. So trying to catch Paint the Night one more time, and the World of Tapestry show on Small World is pretty exciting. So
The jam-packed evening.
yeah, yes. My parents might peel off and take Meryl with them, and that's totally okay.
Yeah, it's a short commute.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then the next day is Sunday, August 3rd, so that's departure.
Yep. So we'll pack up in the morning. I think we'll call a lift at around 9 o'clock because we fly out at about 11. It's usually pretty easy to get through John Wayne, even on a Sunday morning. And so, yeah, and then we'll make our way back to Portland.
All right. That sounds awesome. Is there anything about your trip that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I don't think so. We're just excited about the 70th elements. And I think that's what I'm trying to conscientiously remind myself of is we do Disney quite a bit. We have future trips already planned. And so it's really enjoying, like, there's some special activations with your Magic Band that you can get little souvenir tickets. And of course, the Magic Key experience. And Meryl's really coming into her own with her own voice and just really honoring her requests and interests because we want
She
her
has her
willing
own
to travel buddy.
So the weather, I was just looking at the forecast, and it looks like mid 80s during the day and low 60s. So that's pretty perfect.
Yes. Yep. Pack a sweatshirt for the evening and
But warm enough to swim in the afternoon.
yes. Yeah.
So that'll be great. Okay. Well, I hope you have a fantastic time. I can't wait to hear about all this because some of this is new to me. Never done it before. And I'm curious how it works out.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jessica.
Take care.
I always keep Omaha steaks in my freezer. Nothing beats the convenience or the flavor. Their ribeyes are my favorite. Perfectly aged, incredibly tender, and full of rich, beefy taste. Omaha Steaks has been delivering premium quality since 1917. Right now, during their anniversary sale, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, an extra $35 off with promo code FLAVOR. From juicy burgers to filet mignon, it's heartland quality delivered right to your door, guaranteed. You just can't get beef like this anywhere else in the world. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their anniversary sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code FLAVOR at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code FLAVOR at checkout. See site for details.
Welcome back from your trip, Jessica.
Hi. Good to be here.
We're talking on Saturday, August 9th. You've been back for about 6 days.
Yes.
How was your trip?
It was fun. I think Walt would be proud. We were inspired and found joy, and it was super insightful as a parent traveling with a person who seems to be a new version of themselves every trip. So
That's a great way to describe kids.
yes.
New version of themselves every trip.
It was a lot of fun.
Okay, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
A very good place to start, if you ask me.
Yes.
Wednesday, July 30th, you flew into John Wayne Airport from Portland in the morning.
We did. Slight hiccup there. We were sitting in our seats, noticing that we were missing a pilot. Not per se missing a pilot, but there was someone running diagnostics on the machine or on the airplane. So they announced about 20 minutes before takeoff that thanked everyone for being on time and said, we have a component of our navigational system which is failing testing this morning. So we're going to see if we have a part. And if we have that part, it'll be 90 minutes. And so thankfully they had the part, and true to their word, we were out within 90 minutes. And I just want to shout out to our airline. They actually let people use their boarding pass to get off the plane and come back. So that was super nice. So I actually had to take a call for work, so that was an opportune delay. But yeah, so slight bobble. We ended up getting into John Wayne at 11:15. So
Okay, 11:15, and then you were gonna take a lift to your hotel.
yeah, so that took about 11 minutes. Ordered an extra large, given that we had the stroller, the car seat, and 4 adults who evidently don't pack lightly. So we had a Toyota Sienna minivan, and it dropped us off at Disneyland Hotel by around 12:30. So we left our bags with bell service and went to the front desk. My parents had both used online check-in, and our rooms weren't ready, but we were just specifically interested in our key cards so we could go to the pool because we had rented an all-day cabana for the day. Yeah.
So then at the desk, you got your key cards.
Yep, they just gave us a pool-only key card, and we went in and checked in, most of the Disneyland hotels. I'm not sure if this is the same in Florida because we haven't done that as much, but pretty vigilant about checking room keys and giving wristbands. And so we got our wristbands, we were shown our cabana, and then we accessed the locker room, restroom area to change into swimsuits and just spent some awesome time at the pool. I was really impressed with the amenities they provided. There was when I say a fruit tray, kiwi, blackberries, strawberries, a lot of really nice fruit. We had
And this is part of the cabana
yes.
that you reserved. Okay.
Yep. So that was ready for us because I think our reservation technically started at 9. So we were a couple hours late with the flight issue. But so we had still and sparkling water. They provided sunscreen, after screen. The best thing they provided that I used all week was they provided a glass cleaner. So for watches, phones, eyeglasses, because of all the sunscreen, I think that's the rationale, but we used it throughout the weekend. And then, we ordered some lunch. And then around 3:30, they said, "Hey, we're bringing your cabana treat." And we were like, "What was that?" And I didn't know this was part of the package. They ended up bringing a full charcuterie board, vegetables, a bottle of glasses of champagne for all of the adults. And it was just a great way to enter a brief vacation. And it really filled our pool bucket for the start of the trip.
Yeah, that's nice. At Disney World, they do it sometimes, the wristbands, like at the beach club, because
Oh, okay.
that pool is so popular that people would be likely to try to sneak in,
Yeah.
but they don't do it at most of the pools.
Yeah. I was like, I don't remember that at Saratoga Springs or
Mm-mm.
Caribbean Beach. So, which is where we've stayed before. So,
Yeah, different. At Disneyland Hotel is very different. Very
yeah.
popular pool. So would you say then that the cabana was worth it for you?
I think so. I think it's a special treat. And it was great. We tried to sprinkle a couple extras in just as thank yous to my parents. They just help with childcare and things like that. And so we just wanted to do something special. And I think it was a good use of time. And I also hate fighting for pool chairs. Not that I saw a lot of that, but it was just nice to arrive and have a good launching point for the trip.
Especially because you arrived midday. So
Yes.
it's not like you would have been able to rope drop a pool chair.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Okay. At what point was the room ready then?
Yeah. So I got a text at around, I want to say we were at the pool about 45 minutes when they said our room was ready. And then my parents got their text an hour later. And we noted we were traveling with each other, but didn't necessarily want adjoined rooms. And so we were both assigned rooms on the 3rd floor at the Adventureland Tower. And there's so many different room types at the Disneyland Hotel, depending on what view you want. So we had a deluxe view, which was a nice view of the pool all week or all weekend. So, so we actually stayed, I think, at the pool until about 5:30 and then went up to the room, requested our luggage. That came with about 15 minutes. And then we showered and got ready for dinner.
And you had dinner at Dim Tai Fung?
Yes. Yep. So we had actually a 7 o'clock reservation. We got a reminder that we could check in early. And so in order to do that, you have to go through Disney security. So that was a good orientation for my parents, just from the other side of the Esplanade, because like I've said, sometimes we go through Harbor, depending on where we're staying. So we checked in. I think we just beat the rush, even with reservations. So we got in line and we were seated for our 7 o'clock reservation by 6:55. Yeah, and that was our first time there. I just want to acknowledge the waitress was really helpful. They give you a little ticket to order your food, But she asked, like, is this your first time here? And we said yes. And she said, okay, the visual menu is going to be super helpful. But then she actually just went through the order ticket and said, we recommend so many entrees with a group this size. And she actually just made a recommendation of about 12, and we probably picked directly from her list. So our favorite items were the cucumber salad. Din Tai Fung's really known for their soup dumplings, and I won't even try to attempt to pronounce that. But we really liked the pork variety. We liked the chicken dumplings and the vegetable fried noodles. And at this point, our daughter hadn't really napped, and we had to leave the house at 4 a.m. to get to the airport. And outside Din Tai Fung, with the revisions to downtown Disney, there's this really fun AstroTurf lawn with a performance venue. And there's like these little hills, and Disney Junior was doing a bubble show every hour. And we had a beautiful view sitting by the window. And at that point, she just really wanted, even though she was tired, sitting at a dinner table wasn't really what she was interested in. And so, we enjoyed our meal. She found a couple things she liked, but then I ended up, as we were paying for the check, took her outside. So, even though she's exhausted, she could run thousands of steps in the span of a few minutes. So, yeah. So that was dinner. And then at that point, we had decided to go to down the World of Disney and do our souvenir shopping. So I think I mentioned in the pre-show, my daughter was interested in these bubble wands, but she found a different toy she wanted. And our general rule with it being a short trip is that she can do a pick per day. She's not someone, like a teenager who gravitates towards really expensive things. So if we can get something for her each day, that's just kind of been our approach. We'll see, because we have a longer trip coming up. But she picked out a little play set. My husband, we purchased the key to Disneyland, which was a big part of our tour through Disneyland the next day. And then I just got like a little word project bracelet for the 70th anniversary that they were doing. And I think I always try to pick up a pair of mouse ears for each trip. So that was our first day until I got back to the room and said, hey, let's link our tickets, because Disneyland's a little different in terms of grouping people together. So a couple differences. We all have Magic Band pluses because we went to Disney World recently as a family, but you can't use them for your room. So you still need to use your app to open your doors. And when it comes to grouping people together who might not be on the same reservation, you need to scan each other's tickets so you can manage their plans. And mind you, I've traveled with my parents to Disneyland before using a travel agent, using our travel advisor. And that's when I realized my parents hadn't made park reservations. Because you still need those at Disneyland too. So thankfully, we'll talk a little bit about crowds. There was plenty of availability, but I was like, okay, next trip, because we've traveled with them enough where, I would text them, hey, park reservations are coming up. We need these days on these days. And at Disneyland, it is a daily process with dining and with park. Like the one day opens and then you have to pick it, and then you're up the next morning doing that. Yeah. So we just, my husband and I were like, whew, glad we caught that. And it wasn't something we were discovering as we were trying to scan in. But
So they had park tickets, but not park reservations.
correct.
Okay.
And they had dated, I think when we booked our tickets, you still do dated tickets because the price is based off of the range in which you're traveling. But yeah. So
yeah, I'm glad that you were able to make those. I will say that, we're annual pass holders at Disney World, and we often forget. So we'll be walking into Epcot being like, do we have park pass reservations? Because it's so easy to forget that stuff when it's not the norm for most people. But at Disneyland, it still is.
Yeah, I had a great time. And yet there are so many specific components of this trip that I'm like, I'm really looking forward to our December trip where I don't have to do quite as much of the managing that I was doing. So
yeah. And for anybody that isn't familiar, the way to link in Disneyland is you scan each other's tickets, basically, which is so wild, because then everybody has everybody's tickets.
Yes.
In their accounts. Everybody has them all the time. So when you link your Magic Band, you have to say which ticket it belongs to.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I don't think it's very intuitive, but that's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of back end matching values for sure.
And it just feels strange to have so many tickets in everyone's accounts, but that's how you link.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the end of Wednesday, July 30th, right?
Yes. Yep.
The next day was Thursday, July 31st, and you were rope dropping Disneyland.
Yeah. So I want to say the night before we were probably in bed by 10.
That's a long day.
And what was that?
Long day for you.
Yes. Yeah. And we had made plans with my parents, about we have early entry. We're trying to beat the heat. Rope dropping early entry are our friends. There's also security. So let's meet in the lobby at 6:40. And so we set our alarms for 5:30, or at least I did. And, I kind of woke up the next morning and was like, I'm just going to check. And I go to my phone because it was on the night table. I wasn't sleeping next to the night table. And I opened it up and it's 6:22 a.m. And this is where just grandparents saved the day, because my dad, Papa, had already texted, hey, because he had agreed, I'll go to the coffee house at the hotel and pick up breakfast. So he's like, what would you like? And, I was like, oh, good morning. And sent him our order. And then I called my mom and was like, we just got up. Can you come over and help get Meryl ready? And so again, grandparents to the rescue. Despite the late start, we were still down at the lobby. We actually ended up rope dropping security. So pretty good time. There's 2 security entrances on the hotel side of downtown Disney. I like to use the one closest to Pixar Pier. I feel like a lot of people gravitate to the one north of Fantasyland Tower, and the one that's kind of split between Adventureland and Frontierland, I notice is much shorter most of the time. So we rope dropped that at 7. Security does promptly open at 7, and we were one of the first families through. Security at Disneyland is different than Disney World. You're still pulling all of the things out of your bag. They're bag checking everyone. So I would love to see some upgrades there, but it's
And did they
just
have a
reality.
line? Did they have a line for people with no bags, or did they have to go through the lines too?
I haven't seen a no bag
Me
entry.
either. And that always
Yeah.
confuses me, because I'm like, the people that don't have bags, that should be a perk, is you
Right.
just get to go through a faster line.
Yes. And we're still in the stage where we have we don't use diapers, but I still bring a diaper bag. And so I like to have everything in smaller bags, and I have those all opened up and ready to go. But so we made it through security, and we were in line at the park by 7:10. And by then this is another thing. I was like, oh, because we're actually we like to do early entry, but we were actually not there as the lines were still, we've never made it this early, I guess is what I should say. So they open up the park gates at 7:20. So even though early entry is 7:30, park gates open at 7:20. And it was great. We used the new entry system to link our pictures with our bands. And from there, we went into Disneyland. Early entry people veer right. They go over by the Plaza Inn. You have to have proof of room ready, again, because they're not using magic bands. So you're either pulling up your room reservation on your phone and telling them how many people are there, or if you have a physical room key, you can do that. And so we made it through that, and at around 7:38, we were standing in front of Space Mountain ready to go. And this was our stretch ride for Meryl for the trip. I tried to do some coaching. We bought the little golden book and read that. My husband already knew he wasn't going to do it. And I was, like, this is our make or break moment for touring. So Nana got out of the ECV, and that probably didn't need to happen. I did notice that actually the queue line was pretty wide the whole time. And for some reason, they were merging Lightning Lane and early entry together. And I guess it didn't bother us because we weren't using a Lightning Lane, but people kept asking, where's the Lightning Lane? And I was like, I didn't even know they had Lightning Lane starting before 8. So maybe, I don't know. But so we did Space Mountain. Meryl did great. She said it was a little scary and didn't need to do it again, but they had initially offered us row 1 and 2, and I told my dad there's no way she's riding in row 1. So she sat behind my mom and I and had a great time. While I was in line for Space Mountain, I booked our first Lightning Lane for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railroad for 8:30. And at that point, when we got off Space Mountain, though, we did a walk on to Buzz Lightyear and got off that. Out of the exit, they had the first key to Disneyland checkpoint for us. And so it's just a large key that there's activation points in each land. You insert your key into the lock and you earn a light up color icon, and it has a special song or recording on it. And after you collect all of the stations, you go to the front of the park and do a final check-in, and then they give you a collectible pin. It's actually in the lock. So there's like this little celebration, and the key opens and the pin comes out. But that was at least our first checkpoint. So after Buzz Lightyear, we did Astro Orbiter at 8:11. It had a 5-minute posted wait, and Meryl and Adam needed to wait one rotation. While they did that, I walked over to Maurice's Treats. I was trying to find a churro donut that my coworker's friend had told her about. They weren't available, but they did have something new, which was really fun. It's a croissant cookie. And so got a couple of those in a bottle of water. Again, just a difference with Disneyland. You can't use your Magic Band to charge to your room, but there actually is a feature in the app. So if you go to your hotel reservation and say, charge to my room, you can show a barcode. I would say 85% of staff know what to do with that. And 15% of cast members are like, I'm not sure what to do.
And it's so wild because at Disney World, there's so many on-site guests that
Yeah.
you would have to know how it works, because there's so many
Mhm.
people that would be using it. But at Disneyland, there's only the 3 hotels, and people don't
Yeah.
use those features as much.
Yes. Yeah.
That is funny.
Absolutely. So family met me at the Maurice's Treats, and that's when we headed over to Toontown. We were able to tap in at 8:30, right on the dot, for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railroad. And I booked another lightning lane for Autotopia. We went on the ride, and I'll say, with our rush to get out of the room, there were a couple of things I forgot, like my wallet. So again, thankful to have the phone and the app to charge things to the room. But we also forgot Meryl's sweatshirt. So we picked her up a sweatshirt, a 70th anniversary sweatshirt, on the way out of Runaway Railroad, and then ended up walking through Minnie's house. So Minnie wasn't there, but her house is really fun and has a lot of interactive elements. Next, we went over to Gadget Coaster. It had a 5-minute posted wait. So Meryl and I did that. That was actually my first time riding Gadget Coaster. My sister did it with her the last time we were there, and she loved it. She asked if she could immediately do it again. And yes, of course. So her and Papa did it. Line grew a little bit. It was about a 10-minute wait from there. But then they got off, and we all walked over to Roger Rabbit. Not to ride it, because that's never on my list. But the key to Disneyland lock was there. So they checked that off their list. At that point, I'd been watching the return times for Rise of Resistance because they're not editable. And they had a time that aligned with when we wanted to be at Millennium, or wanted to go to Galaxy's Edge. So I booked a Lightning Lane single pass for Rise of the Resistance. That was $28 per person. Yes. But while doing that, we then decided to head over to Tomorrowland because we needed to use that Autotopia Lightning Lane. We made it over there. They have certain activations that you can use with your Magic Band. And at that point, we did the driving citation. So we all scanned our Magic Band and were issued different tickets for, acts of driving that weren't favorable. So that was just fun, having a little souvenir ticket. We scanned into Autotopia at 9:33. There was a 15-minute wait. And as I went to book my next Lightning Lane, I just noticed that both Tiana's and Matterhorn were down. So we knew we wanted to do Tiana's in the evening or afternoon when it would be a little warmer. But it was just that can really, having two of those big attractions down can really impact where people move or availability. So I was going to book a Lightning Lane for Smuggler's Run because that had been running pretty true to time, and I did that. So we got off Autotopia and headed to Fantasyland, took a little bathroom break, and went on Small World at around 10:10. Had a 5-minute posted wait, and it took about 5 minutes to make it down the queue. We saw the new Coco character installation, and in the finale room, they added the new third verse, and I cried. I still get weepy thinking about it. I just love the lyrics of that song, even though it's an earworm. It's just a sweet and timely message we could all benefit from. So got off Small World and had to do our daily popcorn stop. At this time, Meryl was a little hungry. Like I said, my dad had gone to the coffee house and got us like a starter breakfast sandwich and fruit, but this is where we were going to kind of snack and just try to hold ourselves over until we got back to the hotel. So with that, we threaded through the back of Fantasyland to the Galaxy's Edge. There was the key to Disneyland for Frontierland at that Frontierland entrance. So we took care of that and then tapped in for Smuggler's Run at 10:48. After tapping in for Smuggler's Run, my next priority was booking Tiana's. It had come, well, I think it had come back up, but also they were just offering times. And so I selected that knowing I could still have my 2-hour window, but I could modify it to try to keep pushing it back to when we came back after our break. So we did Smuggler's Run. Meryl opted to be an engineer. That was her speed. And so her and Papa, ran all of the systems checks and then enjoyed that. At that point, we headed over to Rise of the Resistance. And I would say crowds were generally low, like actually quite low. I think someone would have called this a level 4 day. But as we were walking to Rise of Resistance, we didn't put 2 and 2 together because we were walking through a sea of people, which had probably been our first congested point of the trip. And lo and behold, we get the stroller parked, we go to tap in with our lightning lanes, and we can't because the ride's down. So they issued a multi-experience pass for that. So at that point, we opted to try to head back to the hotel. Again, this is around 11:10. We did the Key to Disneyland access point. It's right next to the Resistance aircraft. So we took care of that and then used the pathway cutting through Bayou Country to head out to the park. That was when we got to do the Davy Crockett canoes. So Papa took Meryl and Nana, and they headed back to the hotel, and Adam and I got in line for the canoes. It was posted a 15-minute wait. And I would say we probably waited 20 minutes. And as I was sitting there watching, I was like, oh gosh, they have to coordinate us around the sternwheeler and the pirate ship. It's quite this like orchestrated event. But we had a great time. Eddie was our canoe leader, and very similar to Jungle Cruise, a lot of satire and good humor. And we submitted a cast compliment for him after getting off. So we were off the canoes by about 12:12 and headed back to the hotel. We stopped at City Hall because Disneyland is doing these really cool children's maps for their parks, but you need to ask for them. They're not out with the rest of the map literature. So we picked up one of those and headed back to the hotel
for a little afternoon break.
Yeah. By the time we got there, I kind of told my parents, hey, I think we're going to mobile order from Tangaroa Terrace. It's kind of their quick serve. And when I called my dad, he said, M's out. She's napping in our room. And I was like, okay, like that's great. So we left her there. We did mobile order her lunch though, just in case she woke up and would be hungry. And Adam and I, because we were doing this plaza dining package at 3:30, we knew we needed enough to get us through the next few hours, but we didn't want to eat too much. So we split the ahi tuna poke bowl, and that was probably one of my favorite things we ate the whole trip. So mobile ordering was easy. My parents and I had decided we would try to meet at the lobby again at 2:00, just because, again, we wanted to try to do some things before our dining reservation. And so this is where we, using Disneyland's version of lightning lanes, just needed to set alarms so every 2 hours we could book our next rides. So
Was your daughter awake from her nap by then?
Nope. No, we had to kind of gently, wake her up, put her in the stroller, tell her, hey, you can still rest if you need to on the way in. But she wasn't interested in lunch. So thankfully, our hotel's rooms still have full-size mini fridges. So we could put our food in there and see if she needed it at another time. So, yeah. But during our break, I was able to, Indiana Jones goes so quickly, that lightning lane, and Meryl's not tall enough to ride it. So that was one where during that next 2-hour check-in, it was already at 10 o'clock. And so I grabbed it because that probably would have, been around 1 p.m. So yeah, that and Space Mountain tend to sell out the quickest. So we must have had enough time during that break because I also then booked Big Thunder Mountain, a lightning lane for earlier in the evening. So yeah.
So after your break, where'd you go?
Yeah. So we met at the lobby, walked over to Disneyland. We did the Main Street key to Disneyland station at the firehouse at around 2:30, and then lined up on Main Street outside of the Market House Coffee for the Celebrate Happy Cavalcade. At this point, Meryl was more awake, and they had some princesses and other characters. So that was a really sweet and brief opportunity, but we found a shady spot under a tree to watch it. And then we walked down to catch the new attraction, which is called Walt Disney: A Magical Life. So they've repurposed the Abraham Lincoln show, which I actually kind of always work into my trip every time I go. But yeah, that was wonderful. There was a wait. It wasn't very full, but you just have to wait for the next show to cycle. So it was great. Yeah, I think much better in person than pictures portray. I think there's been some criticisms of how he looks as the animatronic, but in the show, it looks great. So as we were sitting, though, at that show, because we were at the 3:15 showing, I was like, oh, man, like if this is 20 minutes, we're going to be late to our dining reservation at 3:30. And so as soon as the show ended, I kind of told everyone, hey, like we're technically late. We need to go. And got out of there and headed to the Plaza Inn. We were there at around 3:38, and I just apologized. I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't plan our transitions very well, and they were super gracious. So that dining package is the menu is a little controversial, I think, only because it's meatloaf in July. And I don't know, beef is, I think more of the general public leans towards chicken or other items. They weren't offering substitutions. So if you weren't interested in the meatloaf, you could do a pasta primavera or like a pasta with red sauce. And I'd say we all enjoyed it. Like, I don't know, I make meatloaf at home. And as long as we got a spot inside to eat, so it was air conditioned. And I don't know, overall, I thought it was pretty good. But I understand it's an interesting choice. Maybe they use that as a filter to decrease demand overall for the dining.
That's a hilarious theory. You only beef lovers allowed.
Yeah. Because I mean, if they did do the fried chicken, I think they would have a lot more interest. So I don't know. But anyway, with that, we wrapped up lunch and then started to make our way to Bayou Country. To do so, we went through Adventureland. The key to Disneyland checkpoint there is in the Adventureland Bazaar. It's across from the Jungle Cruise and next to Bengal Bites. So you have to go all the way to the back of the store to do that. We then crossed the way to do the 70th Magic Band activation near the Skipper lockers on the Jungle Cruise. So again, another little souvenir ticket and like your ticket to your Jungle Cruise. And that was really just cute. We got to Tiana Bayou Adventure at 4:45 and tapped in, and I was delighted. So with the upgrade to Tiana's, they actually changed the ride queue. In the past, if you wanted to do Splash Mountain, you needed to go most of the time. I believe when we went with my grandma, you had to go get a return time, and then you had to enter through the exit. And that was fine. But now you can actually go through the lightning lane, and they have just a really wide hallway for you to go through. So you're actually going in the same ride queue. You're going under where everyone else is taking the stairs, and then they still end up navigating you to the exit. But it was just, you could use a lightning lane and didn't have to worry about the return time component. It's just really slick. So I think that was an improvement they made when they did the new ride overlay. So did Tiana's and loved that. After tapping in, I booked our lightning lane for the Haunted Mansion at 10:30. That was really the only other ride we needed a lightning lane for, and that was just kind of a hit or miss. I didn't really think we would do much after fireworks, but I was like, if I'll take the slot and at least have it on hand if needed. So We, loved Tiana's, got super wet. At the ride exit, they had the Bayou Country Key to Disneyland check-in outside of Winnie the Pooh. So we did that. And our next ride priority was going to Big Thunder Mountain. To do that at Disneyland, you go through New Orleans Square. And it was at that point we had noted Pirates was open. It had been down and had actually earlier that day done a full evacuation. So we were like, oh, shoot, that's one of my husband's favorite rides. So we talked to the cast members. Pirates still is a ride where if you want to go with an ECV, you need to check in and get a return time, but it was instantaneous. So they, loaded our magic bands, told us to go up further into New Orleans Square and you check in next to Blue Bayou. So we went and just did that, went through the exit, loaded immediately, and checked that off our list. So
that queue is so wild. I hadn't considered how the ECVs work there, but
yeah. And it's recently off of Lightning Lane. And so that just makes it even more tricky. Yeah, that's such a congestion point for that part in the park. So yeah, we were thankful that he's like, it's just a 5-minute return time if you want to do it now. And they offered 2 options. They're like, if you want to stay on your ECV, go through the exit near Blue Bayou, or you can park your ECV and walk the Lightning Lane, but it's still quite the trek. Like, convenient to leave Pirates because the New Orleans Square Key to Disneyland checkpoint was just around the corner on your way towards the Mint Julep Bar. So Adam and Meryl checked that off their list. Then we headed back to our original plans, which was Big Thunder Mountain. We used our Lightning Lane at 6:10 and had an 11-minute wait. And on that ride specifically, we went through the normal Lightning Lane entrance. So my mom checked the ECV and walked through. When we were off of that, we decided to try to head back to Rise of Resistance to use that multi-lane or multiple experience pass. On the way over, I did a mobile order for the cold brew Black Calf. That at Disneyland is at Docking Bay 7. And so that was instantaneous. I was able to pick that up. I think everyone else did a bathroom break and was able to enjoy that before we scanned in for Rise of the Resistance. After Rise, we decided to try to go through Fantasyland and enjoy some of I want to say their pre-firework short lines, because Fantasyland will close for a little bit for fireworks. So we did Snow White. These are all per Meryl's request. So Snow White had a 20-minute posted wait. We waited 12. That was at 7:20. We then went over to Pinocchio, 5-minute posted wait, had a 7-minute wait. And then she also wanted to do the teacups. That had a 10-minute posted wait with a 5-minute actuals. And Papa and I did that with her, with Nana and my husband sitting out. And then we realized, as we're doing the Key to Disneyland, we're like, oh, we only have so many more lands. And we kept realizing we were always undercounting things. So at that point, we realized we had one more to go, which was Fantasyland. So we knew we needed to head to the reserved the reserved viewing area for the plaza, for the Paint the Night parade, excuse me. So we stopped at the Fantasyland portal that's near the Royal Hall. And then my parents and Adam and Meryl headed to the reserved viewing area. Meryl had mentioned she was hungry. And so I did a mobile order at Refreshment Corner for a hot dog and soda. And they have a seasonal specialty called Spicy Firefly chips, which, spicy Fritos. They were quite hot, but I picked those up and then we went in and met the group at the viewing area. So they give you a paper ticket. You also have a lanyard. And it was great. It was hardly crowded. I think the initial crowds of the parade have waned off. So yeah, it was plenty of room. They had ropes up initially, and they actually brought all the characters out in their 70th celebration outfits and worked the crowd. Like, some of them were doing fashion shows or, cheering competitions. And I think specifically because of the parade route, even though that's the reserved viewing area, you're at the tail end of the parade. So an 8:45 start time, it's still a good 25 minutes before that parade rolls through. So cast members did a great job. They were doing trivia competitions, and eventually they removed the rope. and the parade started. So yeah. Oh, they also had photo pass staff working the crowd with little signs, and they'd take family photos of people as they were waiting. So it was just really, it was nice. I think I always worry about being bored standing around for 25 minutes, but it kept kids
They
entertained.
they kept it interesting for you.
Yeah.
And then, so what did you think about the viewing from that spot?
Yeah. This has been the biggest point of like anxiety. I don't want to like give it too much credit, but like there was a lot of mixed feedback because where it is, you're outside Main Street across from the train station, kind of on that triangular curve. And if you're someone who likes to look at a straight shot and see the parade coming, like some reviews had indicated you kind of missed that. And so between the meatloaf, which again, like questionable menu choice, and just that, like Adam and I had kind of gone back and forth, and he finally let the Reddit threads convince him. He's like, I think we should just give it a shot. Right. And it's like, okay. And I thought it was great. Like, again, there was so much room because it wasn't crowded. People got to sit down, like, for most of the parade if they wanted to, even if you were in the back rows. And I think we chose to be right on the corner so you could kind of look and see everything coming. And Meryl was just mesmerized. So, yeah, it was fun. It was everything I'd hoped it would be. I did note that the last float, you might recall it's like that when it ran originally, it's like this geometric shape that would open and expand. That wasn't working any times I saw it. So that might have just been something that being in storage, they had a hard time bringing back, but it was still great. So yeah.
So was that the end of the night, or were you able to use some of your lighting lanes?
Yeah. So we ended up watching the parade, following the rope holders to about halfway down Main Street. We watched Wondrous Journeys because fireworks was definitely in the plans that night. Beautiful show. I know they did it for the Disney 100, so I've seen it before, but that was just so inspiring. So at that point, Nana and Papa were like, we're going back. And so they took Meryl back to the room, and Adam and I used the Indiana Jones lightning lanes. So we hightailed it over to Adventureland. They were recording a TV show for Disney Plus. Jon Favreau and Catherine Hahn were in the park, and Adventureland, and specifically the Tiki Room, had been there were tons of like public notices about film production and tons of equipment carts. So it was a little bit of a zoo sometimes as we were walking through all day, but we made it to Indiana Jones. Even with the lightning lane, it was about a 20-minute wait, which it's okay, but yeah, that's one where it can still, the lightning lane, depending on the time of day, might take longer than some people want. But that was our last ride. And then we headed back to the park.
Headed back to the
sorry.
hotel.
Yes, thank
But
you.
that ride isn't one your daughter can do. So
Yeah,
she's probably good timing.
Short. Yeah. Yep. And I averaged Adam's in my steps just because I think depending on if you're pushing the stroller or not, your watch undercounts. So for that day, we were at 28,184 steps. And I loved, you had a patron, Tammy, like how she recapped her rides. So we did 20 rides that day, 8 of which were booked with lightning lanes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good stat. And also, I love when people include their steps because even though Disneyland is smaller, I think you get more steps.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially with young children, if you can't stay in the park, it's a commitment walking however long, at least 10 minutes back to your hotel and back. So
yeah, it's a huge, nice perk to be able to walk back and forth, but it does make your steps higher.
yeah.
Okay, so that is a good Disneyland day. The next day was Friday, August 1st. You had planned early entry at California Adventure. I'm curious if you can keep that pace up with these late nights.
Yes. It ended up catching up with us on Sunday. But yeah, this was our least eventful morning. So we woke up as intended. This time we took care of mobile ordering breakfast from the coffee house. Adam went and picked that up. We met grandparents in the lobby at around 6:57, and just again, we're in security by 7:00. So super short walk over there. We were in line to get into California Adventure by 7:14, and They opened the gates at 7:20, and we were in the early entry line at Carthay Circle. That's where they do check-in at 7:25. And California Adventure is a little different. They hold you until 7:30, whereas I feel like Disneyland lets you infiltrate whatever ride you want to go to. They held us. And so whenever we were set to go, we walked right over to Web Slingers. We were in the showroom at 7:40. While I was there, I purchased our Lightning Lane single pass for Radiator Springs Racers. That was available for right at 8 o'clock. Those were $22 each. And I also booked an 8:30 Lightning Lane multi-pass for Guardians of the Galaxy for my mom, my dad, and myself. We were out of Web Slingers and headed over to Cars Land, where we got a picture near the Cars Land welcome billboard with a PhotoPass photographer at 7:55. We then walked directly on to Tow Mater Junkyard. I love that ride. So cute. And we're off at 8:03. We got in line for the Luigi Rollickin' Roadsters at 8:09. It had a 10-minute posted wait. We waited 5 minutes. That one's super cute too. And at that point, then we headed over to Radiator Springs Racers to use those single passes. 120-minute posted wait for folks without a single pass. So thankful to have that. Newer park. So we were ushered to the ECV boarding area, which is pretty quick. And we were off the ride at 8:37. At that point, we were going to go use our Guardians Lightning Lane. Adam took Meryl to Buena Vista Street. She had found a baby Minnie in the little swaddle the day before, and we said that might be something good for tomorrow. In the mind of a 4-year-old, that is now gospel. So
I was going to say, it's definitely happening.
yeah. So we went over to Guardians while they went to go procure Minnie. We walked in at Guardians at 8:47. And at that time, I booked our next Lightning Lane for Soarin'. It was down at the time, but I booked it for 10:45. Guardians was, I guess I just don't do it that often. But like I said, walked in at 8:47. We were seated at 9:10, off at 9:15. So even with that Lightning Lane, just the pre-show and the queue after the show can take a bit of time. We reunited with Adam and Meryl, decided to do a bathroom break. And this is where we kind of burned a little bit of time not knowing what to do. We didn't have a Lightning Lane for Goofy Fly School. The line was a little longer than we wanted. We thought about maybe going over and doing Monsters, Inc., but didn't necessarily want to walk back across the park. So ultimately, we decided to do The Little Mermaid without a Lightning Lane. After that, we did the Jumping Jellyfish at 9:58. That was a 5-minute wait. Ended up being posted 5, ended up being 10. Next, Meryl and I did the Tandem Symphony Silly Swings. That's one of my favorite rides. And she was super hesitant about it, but when we got off, she said she loved it. So we were done with that at about 10:22. Then just kept working our way around Pixar Pier. Got in line for Emotional Whirlwind at 10:27. It had a 10-minute posted wait. It took about 12. And, that ride, there are specific characters on buckets. So when your daughter says she wants Rainbow Unicorn, I was like, well, we will patiently walk. And if we don't get it, that is what it is. But there was not a lot of interest in Rainbow Unicorn. So we all squeezed ourselves into a bucket, 4 adults and 1 kid, and did that. And then at that point, it was around 10:40. And we decided we needed to head over to Soarin' because we had that brunch reservation at 11:30. And Soarin', I'm not sure they're running both sides anymore. Well, it feels like the last couple times I've been there, they're not running both theaters. So we did our Lightning Lane for that. So tapped in at Soarin' at 10:55. I booked Toy Story Midway Mania with the intent to keep modifying it because we knew we had brunch and we're going back to the hotel. So we at least reserved our spot for that. We were on Soarin'. The pre-show started at 11:17 for Soarin'. And we were I think, thankfully seated in B2. That just was happenstance. We were off at 11:26, and yeah, thankfully that's close to the entrance to Grand Californian. So Adam had that reservation on his phone because we had split reservation making that day just because we had a couple things we wanted to do. He did check in on the phone. We actually arrived at the restaurant lobby at around 11:32, and we were seated at 11:38. So it was
Good.
pretty nice.
Good planning to be over on that side of the park around that time of
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And how was your brunch lunch?
Yeah, I was so impressed. I didn't do any character dining growing up, and so with Meryl, we try to, like, for the length of the trip, try to, like, get the right amount of character meals in, just because it can take a lot of time. It felt like, and I don't know if this was intentional, but that restaurant kind of has 2 main sides,
Mhm.
and it really felt like they were seating each side in blocks. So, what I loved is we were able to go get food, and we had basically were wrapping up eating when all of the characters came in, and so I would say within an hour, we had 8, all the characters came by, and we could have really been ready to go within the hour if we had things to do. Meryl, it was just it was a happenstance that Minnie happened to be the first character, and here Meryl has her little baby Minnie doll, so she hopped up right away and was ready to see her. Mickey also got a warm welcome, and then Chip and Dale, for some reason, like, even though this was our child's 3rd birthday theme, she was, like, under the table, not interested in meeting them. They slowly won her over, I think Dale, like, flossed his teeth with Dad's straw wrapper, and that got a couple guffaws and laughs, and Chip, was playing with Nana, and so she warmed up to them, but wasn't willing to do pictures or anything, so and then Pluto's always popular, so
But the pacing of it seems like it worked better, so you're not constantly having to juggle running to the buffet versus a character.
yes, yeah, yeah, and I like, the character managers, I love logistics, so I just love noticing things, and, like, the first guy, you could tell he had a schematic of the restaurant with tiny dots, 5 dots per table, and he was marking where characters had been, and then they did a shift change, and even as we were nearing, another manager came, and she said, "Hi, I just wanted to make sure, have you had a chance to meet all your friends?" And we're like, "Yeah, like, they've been by, and, Chip keeps coming by."
Hmm.
She's like, "Okay, good, thank you." And so it felt great. I think character meals are, like, a source of anxiety for me because, like, I don't know, I've just witnessed, like, last summer when we were in Paris, like, I just witnessed some, like, what I was like, that's pretty aggressive behavior towards characters." Like, yeah, and so I've always wondered how it will work out. So anyway, so yeah, like I said, we could have been out of there within an hour, but I think I ordered some coffee, and we ended up kind of just resting a little bit. Again, this is kind of our midday break, so I'm kind of in that mode of booking the next set of lightning lanes. So like I mentioned, when I was in Sora, and I had taken care of Toy Story, and I kept trying to push that back. And then just in the span of our afternoon break, I also booked Goofy Fly School, and then 2 hours later booked a Monsters Inc. Lightning Lane. Again, just hoping, kind of having to keep checking in and keep pushing things back as the times were moving. So we were back at our room at around 1:30. So brunch was quick, but for some reason, just meandering back to the room. We got to our room at around 1:30. We said we would meet each other in the lobby at 3:40. And so again, at that time, Meryl took a nap. I think we all dozed off. And I booked a lightning lane for web slingers, again, with the intention to modify it. So unfortunately, no pool breaks the day before or even today. And I think that's been a little point of the trip. I knew it was something that we wanted to do, and then just balancing people wanting to go on rides, but also just, like, really needing to rest.
Mhm.
I felt a little bad about not being able to get to the pool, but it is what it was, and people overall felt like they were okay with how things worked out. But
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it's a good thing your arrival day was kinda dedicated to that. So
yes.
you definitely got some time in at least that day. But yeah, it is hard to know what your afternoon's gonna look like if people are tired.
Yep. And I didn't mention this, but when we got to the cabana, like I said, it was a special treat. But as I was surveying the pool, I also noted they had these like smaller areas called pods. And I was like, oh, those look nice. Again, just like if we're doing these midday breaks, I don't want to come to the pool at like 11:30 and like there's no chairs near each other. And so actually when I had been at the cabana on Thursday, I called guest services and said, "Is there any chance that there's pods available for Saturday?" And they had some. And I was surprised by that cuz like the size of the Disneyland hotel complex, they only had 5 cabanas and 5 pods, and I was for sure thinking they'd be sold out because I had called at 60 days to get
Mhm.
our first reservation, but they had those and it ended up working out for our Saturday. But anyway, yeah. So,
All right. So on this day, you took an afternoon break and you met up at 3:40 with your
yes.
parents.
Yeah, so we met at 3:40, headed to the park. We wanted to do Monsters Inc., but it was down. And so we were uh granted a multiple experience pass. This is where like when I referred to like traveling with a new person every trip, like the trip was just so exciting for Meryl. And, I'm someone who's trying to constantly keep my kid fed. And every time we would like be ready to eat, even at the brunch, she wasn't eating much. And so we got to the park, Monsters Inc. was down. And so we decided to go to PhilharMagic instead. And I think that's where she just indicated, she'd had a nap, but she was ready to eat. And nothing was really going to be interesting or fun until that happened. And so thankfully, Award Wieners is nearby. You can do a mobile order. They've got a great kids hot dog. And so we went and did PhilharMagic, came out of the exit. I picked that up. And at that point, Monsters Inc. was still down. So we decided to head over to Grizzly River Run because that was a window with booking all of the other rides. There just hadn't been a great time to grab a lightning lane for that. So we headed over to the Grizzly Peak area. We stopped at the Willy Churro cart to get the celebration churro. That was a 70th celebration treat, rolled in ube sugar. That was delicious. If they do take modifications, I think I'd recommend like less icing and sprinkles if someone were to try it. But overall, it was good. We used our multiple experience pass from Monsters Inc. to do Grizzly River Run, and that was really fun. We again used the ECV entrance. I think my parents and I both put on ponchos, but we did that at 4:55 and we were off at 5:12. Nana lost her hat on the ride, so she had to get a replacement one, and she did that as we made our way over to Toy Story Midway Mania, where we used our lightning lane multi-pass at 5:35. We, again, were kind of ushered through the ECV onboarding and needed to wait a little bit because there was someone who needed like a full transfer ahead of us. So just with the number of cars ready for that situation, we waited to do that. And again, while we waited though, I had the window open to book our next lightning lane for the web slingers. So we had done that in the morning and wanted to do it again that night. And again, just modifying all of these times to get them. I guess it's actually only this one that we needed to modify to be after World of Color. So we got off of Midway Mania, stopped at a popcorn cart for our daily popcorn. Meryl requested to do Silly Symphony swings again. That's not something that my husband is ever interested in. So he peeled off, and we love the Rita's Turbine Blender at San Francisco. They have margaritas. So he went and did a margarita pickup for the two of us, and Meryl and I went and did Silly Symphony swings again. Met up with Dad, and we just sat and enjoyed popcorn and our margaritas. Adam had the lemon lime, and I had the strawberry margarita. And then, yeah, we had those earlier lightning lanes for Goofy Fly School. So we tapped into that at 6:55. And then for some reason, with how lightning lanes were working, I was able to book one immediately again. So we just opted to do Little Mermaid. It had a quick return time, and so we were in the area. We used that. And then at this point, we did a bathroom and shopping break. And again, because for some reason I was in that churn of just getting to book the next lightning lane, I grabbed a Monsters Inc. and just kept trying to modify it again to be after World of Color because we were approaching our World of Color party time. So they have changed the procedure for the World of Color dessert party. You used to need to go and check in at a podium, and they've now switched that to online check-in. So I did not know this, and I just thankfully they still have a podium, but Chris at the podium was very friendly and, "Oh, hi, like, have you already done online check-in?" And I was like, "I didn't know this was a thing. This is life-changing." So she helped us check in and said, "You'll get a text when they're ready to seat you. You'll want to head over back again near Little Mermaid." So at that point, though, it was 7:40, and we had lightning lanes for later, but we were just kind of in that Grizzly Peak slash Little Mermaid area and just decided to do the little, I wouldn't even call it a trail, but there's a walk around the Grizzly Peak area where you can watch different people come down, and experience the ride. And Meryl thought that was great. So we did that for a little bit and then made our way over to where we needed to be to check in or to be seated for World of Color.
So can you talk about this? Because I've only done the podium one. So you check
Yeah.
in like in the app and then it tells you where to go to be seated?
I believe so. So you check in, you give your cell phone, you say if there's any allergies, you confirm the party composition, and you can also make table requests. So that's where I requested we generally like a low top table. And so you can make that. And then immediately after you hit check in, I got a text and it said, "Thank you so much for checking in. You'll get a text when your table is ready. Please be near," or like the Little Mermaid, like
Mhm.
or like, the hostess stand will be near across from the Little Mermaid. So, and there weren't many people checking in with Chris. So everyone else, cause like we were just there in February and this wasn't a thing. And like you had to
No.
show up at 7:30 or 7:20 to just even get through the line for an 8 o'clock
Yes.
party.
I 100% would have gone to the podium as well because that's how it's always worked.
Yeah. And I asked
But
Adam,
I
I was like,
but
"Did I
but I also think it's confusing because there's so many reserved sections for that show that it's sometimes hard to know where to go. Like, if I am I on a dining package, dessert party, lighting la or virtual queue or whatever it is, you know? And so I just find finding the right spot can be tricky if you've never done it before.
Yeah, and I asked Adam, I was like, "Did I, miss this?" And we actually just read the reservation confirmation, and no, it said, "You'll check in near the water wheel at Grizzly River Run." But I think it's great because it's no just anytime there's a check-in for thing, people get really territorial or, it's an energy I don't necessarily need even though I'm, inclined to feed on, So I was thinking, "This is great." So
Right.
yeah. So at that point, I was like, well, we're late check-in people. I just found out about this. So in the order of operations, we're probably at the tail end. But we did get our text at 8:10. Nana parked her ECV, stroller had already been parked, and we couldn't have got a better table. We were right in the middle. Yeah, again, nothing that we had done to influence that, but it was pretty perfect. So table 22. So yeah, they've redone a couple things with the food here that I really appreciated. We had kind of known we had that big brunch. We'll try to stretch until the dessert party because there are sweet and savory items, but they put them in these new, really beautiful bento, when I say heavy duty boxes. And so
Mhm.
you don't have to worry about asking for a box at the end. So you just get this beautiful box. There was a collector's pin. And even at the end of the day, or at the end of the meal, they're like, "Do you want to take these home with you? Do you need a bag?" And we're like, "Sure." And even the bag was beautiful. It was logoed. And I was like, man, who's ever taking over it was just really high. It was a nice experience because we typically, Adam and I will share a box and then we'll take a box back to the hotel for later. So that was it was really nice. And I would say it was World of Color happiness. It was beautiful. It's probably my favorite rendition that I've seen so far. we've listened to the 70th celebration soundtrack quite a bit, and it includes all of the music. And yeah, Meryl is well versed in the Great Rainbow Song. And so just at the end for the finale, like our magic bands were matching the show, and she and I were like belting it at the top of our lungs. And it was super sweet. So we enjoyed that moment, and then had technically at this point 2 more lightning lanes. So I kept modifying times, and we had 9:30 lightning lanes for Web Slingers and Monsters Inc. We headed over to the Avengers campus. We got on Web Slingers at 9:35. We were off at 9:55, and unfortunately had to leave our Monsters Inc. lightning lane on the table. So that's a regret. We just couldn't make it work. And again, that's not a ride we tend to like do, but I think just kind of like saying goodbye. It was something we had wanted to, but sometimes there's only so much you can do.
Things always move up the list of priority when you know it's going away.
Yeah. And to that point, Adam said, well, if you want to come back, I was like, we're not booking another trip just to say goodbye to Monsters Inc. Like, but tempting, but no thanks.
Maybe you can come back for other reasons.
Yes. Yeah. Have to be by the end of the year. So our average steps this day was 27,254. We did 16 rides, and 7 of which were booked on lightning lanes. So
that's pretty good for California Adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. And Coaster was down for refurbishment. Not something Meryl could ride. And Adam and I are kind of, how do we feel? Like, when did we eat last?
Yeah.
How close are the Tums afterward? So yeah.
The next day was Saturday, August 2nd, your last park day. And it was early entry at Disneyland. You had a bunch of stuff planned this day.
Yeah. So this morning, just looking at the text to my mom, I had to chuckle. It said, we've experienced a triple hit. I've been popping Pepto-Bismol since 3. Adam woke up and can't hear out of his left ear, and Meryl woke up with a swollen eye. I was like, we'll see how it goes today. So yeah, like it was like, okay, things are catching up with us at this point. I think for me, this is often that Disney World too. I think sometimes I just get caught off with not drinking enough water. And so my body just like, is like, oh, like, let's kind of recalibrate things. Because nobody, like, so many of us were eating the same places and the same things. Like nobody else was feeling bad. So I kind of ruled out food poisoning. But I did feel a lot better by the time we met in the lobby. We were just kind of pros at this point, because we were in line for Disneyland Park by 7:10. Gates opened at 7:20. And at this point, we just wanted to do some of those Fantasyland rides and other family favorites. So we were in line for Alice in Wonderland at 7:36. And at that time, I had booked a lightning lane for Big Thunder Mountain. We got off Alice and wanted to go check out Peter Pan. This wasn't something that Meryl, she likes it, but when I said, what, do you want to go do Peter Pan? I was like, well, I feel like we're here, we have to do Peter Pan. But there was still a 30-minute wait, and I just felt like the line was growing. And so the group decided to go to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I know that's a classic. Again, not one that I'm ever really like, great, let's do that. But it was a 5-minute standby, and it was a walk, posted 5 minutes. We walked on. We also then elected to go do the carousel, which I always enjoy. At that point, we headed over to Big Thunder and went to go use the ECV entrance, which is through the exit, with our lightning lane. And the cast member said, it's a walk-on. You should use that lightning lane for something else. And so we did. We canceled that, went through as a standby, and I selected the Haunted Mansion instead, just because we hadn't done it yet. After Big Thunder, we stopped at the chimichanga cart to get a breakfast chimichanga, which was probably another top 3 thing we had on the trip. It was really great. On our way to Haunted Mansion, we noticed that Pirates still had a short line. This is around 8:30. And so we went through standby again through the exit. After Pirates, I mobile ordered the beignet 6-pack from the Mint Julep bar, and specifically I did the 50-50 mix, so half traditional and half of their seasonal flavor, which was pineapple. Picked that up, and they were delicious.
Pineapple ones as well?
Yes, they were really good, and they're of course, we're sitting on those big gardening boxes, or like, I don't know what they're called, the planters, and there were a mama duck, like, teaching her little ducks how to, like, burrow and find grubs, and that was just fun for Meryl. She was delighted with the baby ducks, and
Mm.
I might have given her the inside of a beignet and said, "You can scatter that on the ground, and those baby ducks might like them." But yeah, so for a kid who hasn't fed ducks at the park yet, I was like, "I feel like this is okay." But after our beignet break, we went and did the Haunted Mansion with the Lightning Lane. And at that point, I was still trying to look at things we had wanted to do. Jungle Cruise and Winnie the Pooh still had 5-minute posted waits. So we got off after we used that Lightning Lane for Haunted Mansion, I immediately booked Tiana's because we did want to do that one more time. So got off Haunted, walked over, did Winnie the Pooh, 5-minute posted, 5-minute actual wait, and then we used our Tiana's Lightning Lane. That point, I diverted strategy and started booking Lightning Lanes for DCA and booked Toy Story Midway Mania just based off of what ride seemed to be the most popular at the time based off of the return times offered. So we did Tiana's, had a blast, and decided we were going to head back to the hotel. So this was around 10 o'clock. I had one more 70th celebration treat I wanted to try. So we stopped at the Tropical Hideaway, and I had the 70th pineapple upside down cake sundae, and it's delicious, and everyone should try it. Sadly, they were out of the souvenir cup, but it was quite good. On our way out to the park, that's where we did our final checkpoint. And so this is it's at the entrance. You go through the ticket turnstiles, and it's on the left before you go under the railroad. And the pins have, as you're doing your key to Disneyland and going through each land, you get an emblem from each land. And the pin is a D with one of those 9 emblems. And they're all great, but I was like, it'd be really nice to have the castle or the partner statue. And mind you, this was Adam and Meryl's thing, but so Meryl did the last one, and the little door opened automatically, and we unwrapped the paper, and they ended up getting the Dreamer statue. So I was like, gosh, like all of these just fun little wins. Like that was really sweet. So
You manifested it.
I think you maybe, yeah.
That's how it works.
How many manifestations can you put into the space? Because I feel like I'm always like zinging those out there. But yeah, it was fun. We decided to head over to the hotel. At that point, I did an Uber delivery to our hotel for some hydrogen peroxide, just for Adam's ear situation. And the driver was there by the time we got to the hotel lobby. So that was convenient. We were back at our room by 10:45, and this is where I had reserved those pods, and I was like, okay, family, and they were totally on board. We're like, we're heading to the pool. So by the time we had swimsuits on, sunscreened, we were down at the pool at around 11:30. Pool staff was great, helped us get the umbrellas positioned because, the weather was beautiful, but it was still, and, just direct sun, quite a bit. So they got us situated. We ordered, again, the nachos were probably our favorite thing from the pool menu. Meryl wanted a grilled cheese. And as we were swimming there, I was just sitting using that 2-hour rule to keep booking lightning lanes. So I booked Web Slingers at 11:45, intending to modify it. Then our next priority was Big Thunder Mountain. We decided we wanted to leave the pool at around 2:30. And Meryl loved the water slides. She specifically loved the e-ticket pool. And at 1:50, the e-ticket pool had a biohazard clearance. So they handled it with fidelity. Meryl actually wasn't in the pool, thankful. No, she was, because I remember a mom sitting behind us was about ready to take her daughters. I was like, they just cleared the pool. And she said, oh, do you know what happened? And it's like, I think it's a biohazard. And she's like, ah. So thankfully, they're like, everyone can move to the D pool. So the D pool, which is a little smaller, just turned into kid soup. Like, there's just so many bodies. And I was like, Meryl, we've only got about 40 minutes left. So do you want to go do the water slides? And she was, yeah, she was interested in that. And just based off her swim level, I have her wear, especially on the big water slide. It's a good I want to say 36-inch, maybe up to 4 feet, like landing pool. They'll let children wear life jackets. So I would go first, she'd go second, and then Adam would follow behind. But so we did water slides for the last 40 minutes or so.
But you're talking about the time. So the pods are reserved for a certain specific time period?
They are. And this is what I would say. So when I'd called about pricing, any of the pool rentals at Disneyland can either be an AM rental, a PM rental, or a full day. So when we had done the cabana, I was like, we're going to do a whole day. I would have been there till 6:00, like had it been my decision. But with the pods, like the price difference, like, so the morning rental is 9 to 1 and the afternoon rental is 2 to 6. But the difference between a half day rental and a full day rental is only $30. And so I was just like, it's easier for us to take the full day because, we got there at 11:30. We stayed until 2:30. It just, for that difference for us, it was kind of a no-brainer. Yeah. And I would say I really enjoyed the pods. Like if it was just Adam and I and Meryl traveling, it's technically 2 per person, 2 per pod, but because she was so little, and I was very specific about this on the phone. I said, we have 4 adults and 1 child. They're like, oh, we'll just put the adults on the reservation. And, so I was like, okay, as long as you're aware, like they're like, it's not a problem. So anyway, so we did leave the pool at 2:30. And right as we were leaving, they had done what they needed to do to open the pool back up. And there was no hesitation. It was filled again. So yeah, I'm sure Disney's ran into that before. So we all showered, met back up at the lobby at around 3:20. Meryl did not have a nap this day. So she got out of the shower and immediately wanted to sleep. And I said, I am so sorry. We can rest in the stroller, but we've got some things to do tonight. And so she was in the stroller, again, met my parents at 3:20, and we were at DCA, meaning through security, by 3:40. We got in line for the new Mickey Mouse Clubhouse show. And while we did that, I was just kind of looking at next reservation options again with what was selling out, and decided to book a lightning lane for Mickey and Minnie Runaway Railroad because it was already at 10:30 for the evening at that point. Loved the new Clubhouse show. Again, we found the soundtrack in between us talking last and heading down there. So we already knew some of the songs. And so after that, we headed over to Web Slingers because we had the lightning lane. I decided at that time that we probably most likely weren't going to use that Mickey and Minnie late lightning lane. So I switched it over to a Smuggler's Run at Disneyland. And then while we were in line at Web Slingers, I also bought the single pass for Radiator Springs Racers. Not a lot of demand for single passes at Disneyland. Almost all of them ran for the individual ones within the hour. I just think there's so many local guests and annual pass holders. They're either happy to use the single rider lane, which most of those rides now offer, or So,
but it's so wild because the lines are so long. So
Right.
you would think if I saw the standby line, I'd be like, you know what? I'm buying a single pass.
Yeah, because like they're still very popular. And so we did Radiator Springs Racers after Web Slingers. And then on our way to Toy Story Midway Mania, we had just good timing. The Better Together Pixar Pals Parade was starting, and I had wanted to try to catch that. So we set up ourselves in the designated area by the cappuccino cart right at the base of the entrance to Pixar Pier. And that was really cute. We headed to Toy Story Midway Mania tapped in at 5:25 and boarded the ride at 5:34. And then that's where we needed to head over, to Radiator Springs Racers to use our individual lightning lane. So we did have to backtrack a bit. On the way there, I noticed that there were something called cheeseburger bao buns. So maybe that's an attempt of the ever popular cheeseburger spring rolls at Magic Kingdom. But we tried those and they were pretty good. That cart was by the Incredicoaster as a snack. Tapped into Radiator Springs at 5:55 and then decided we needed to head over to Disneyland because we were at that point, it was around 6. We had that nighttime gathering item, our ride starting or event, starting at 8 o'clock. And we still had Big Thunder on our list, Rise of the Resistance, and Smuggler's Run. So
how did it go at Disneyland?
yeah, so we did stop and get popcorn and photo pass photos on our way out of DCA. Took the short walk across the Esplanade, tapped into Disneyland, and we hit our Big Thunder Railroad lightning lane at 7 o'clock, this time going through that ECV entrance. Headed over then to Rise of the Resistance, used our lightning lane, made it to the first room before they show you to the pre-show. And the two guy, we were literally right at the front. And, Meryl being 4 was very excited to tell people five people with an ECV like that, that was her job. And just the cast members were opening up the little control boxes. We were waiting and waiting. Meryl not so quietly, Mom, why aren't we going? I was like, oh, well, technology isn't always reliable. They're doing their best. And that's when they told us that the ride had gone down. So we were exited. They offered us a multiple experience pass that we had to have scanned because we were already in line and had tapped in. And so at that point, we knew we wanted to do Smuggler's Run. While we were in line for that, chatted and asked for a refund because we were not going to make it back with everything else we were doing. And they processed that for us. So we tapped into Smuggler's Run at 7:40 and ended that ride at around 8:02. But thankfully, that is right next to the check-in for Docking Bay 7, and there was already a line for the nighttime gathering event. So,
And when you asked for the refund for that lightning lane,
yeah,
did you say you did it in the app chat or do you did it in person?
thank you. I did it in the app chat.
Okay, good to
Yeah.
know it works.
I know, yeah, because I'd heard it was available at Disney World. I was like, I'm just gonna check it out. I've done it at the Umbrella as well. We always end up wanting to use it at night, and so then if it goes down, it doesn't have on these kind of nights, it never works with our schedule to make it back. So it's a great convenience. It probably took though 10 minutes for the first reply after you do your query. So it was kind of a pick up put down situation as I was waiting for their replies and we were doing the ride.
But at least you could do it while you were doing other things.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So at that point, we headed to Docking Bay 7 where we needed to check in for the nighttime gathering. When you check in for that, they give you a lanyard and they also have a photo opportunity. And after doing that, you go into Docking Bay 7 and everyone orders their drinks. So alcoholic beverages are available for sale, but they're not included in your package, whereas at World of Color, they are. But we opted to just do sodas, or they had a fruit punch with cotton candy, and Meryl was all about that. So I think she was living her best life. So they also give you your bento boxes and a little card, and they say, you're welcome to hang out in here as long as you'd like during the event. The Shadow of Memory, a Skywalker Saga projection show will be at 8:45 or 10:30. So you can leave your food at your table and go out to the reserved viewing area and come back. Just please leave this card that says we're still here, so your food isn't cleared. So we did that. Well, Meryl got in the stroller and promptly fell asleep, and she was out. She had her cotton candy off of her beverage, and then,
She said, sugar high, no, let me crash.
Yeah. Yes, she'd worked so hard all day. She was swimming to her heart's content, didn't get the nap in. She was a good sport. So we let her sleep. We did the first showing of the Skywalker saga. It was really nice. Like, my husband loves Star Wars. And so that was cool. We came back, finished our food, and then headed out for the fireworks show at 9:35. And from there, my parents, I asked, like, what would you like to do? Here's my priorities, which was the tapestry of happiness. I think I misquoted it on our pre-show discussion, but it's like, I'd like to go do that. And I want to see Paint the Night one more time. And my parents were like, we're ready to go back to the room. So we kept Meryl with us in the stroller just in case she wanted to, like, she woke up and rallied, or, my parents had already had her one other night for the trip. So we headed over after the fireworks, we headed over to Small World. We caught the 10 o'clock Tapestry of Happiness show. This is a projection show on Small World, and it's in the styling of Mary Blair. So it's kind of just an ode to the theme park, and I've only read a few reviews, but those early reviews were like, this is kind of a sleeper hit if you love the park. So again, just kind of going through the history and the development of the lands. It's not a narrative, but it's to music, but they do a little ode to the retired attraction. So like the Coco song, Remember Me, comes in and plays, and they've got like the jet boats and the people buckets I remember riding on when I was younger through the Matterhorn. So it was a brief show, but super, super sweet. At that point, Adam and I headed to Main Street, and we found a spot near Crystal Arts to watch the last Paint the Night parade. He stayed there with the stroller, and I did a last-minute souvenir trip. So I went and got a sweatshirt and got Meryl a 70th anniversary pin. She's not a pin trader yet, but she has a lanyard, and we tried to get something each trip. So yeah, made it back to them. And we had the Paint the Night parade at 10:45, and then just headed back to the hotel.
All right. Before we move on to your departure day, I don't know if I heard what you thought about the nighttime gathering experience
Oh, yeah.
in Galaxy's Edge. Did you think that was good or worth it?
Yeah, I think so overall, like, crowds were very low on our trip. Like, people would say level 2 on Friday, 3 on Saturday. So I don't necessarily think the reserved viewing was needed, but the food was fun. Again, it's an opportunity to kind of sit and rest if you don't want to deal with crowds. And yeah, like I told Adam, I was like, I'm not going to say this like a one and done for us, but like that's not something I'm going to like book every trip. It's not like the Paint the Color or World of Color dessert party. Like that for us is just kind of a non-negotiable.
Yeah, it's a given.
Yeah, but it was fun. And like, again, just we didn't get to spend a lot of time in Galaxy's Edge. So the quirky food, like they had a whipped brie and like a balsamic vinaigrette crisp, but it was like a puff. And so it was just like, I just love the ingenuity of the Disney culinary team and the fun things that you get to do for like Oga's and Galaxy's Edge in general. So it was fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the end of your park time. The next day was Sunday, August 3rd, and you had a flight home.
Yeah. Daily recap from Friday. That was our big step day, 29,800 steps.
Saturday or Friday?
Saturday. Sorry.
Saturday, 29,000 steps. That was your biggest steps.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the back and forth. We rode 14 rides, 7 of which were booked with lightning lanes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You did a lot of back and forth between the parks and the hotel, so makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Sunday was pretty easy. We wanted to leave the hotel by 8:30. So my dad booked the Uber for that day. So we got up and packed, reorganized ourselves, had a minivan again, made it over to John Wayne. We all have pre-check, but they saw like Adam and Meryl and I are like, oh, do you want to try our new family-friendly lane? And we were like, okay. And again, there were only 2 people in front of us, but one person just, when I heard ma'am, you need to have a real ID to fly, I was like, oh no, what is this? Like, can we back up and just go through pre-check? But it was great, really uneventful wait time, got home on time. And yeah, I think that's where all of those steps caught up with us. Yeah, like we were a little tired. Just again, it wasn't terrible, but it's just hotter and you're in the direct sun. I mean, Disneyland, both parks are beautiful and have just like a lot of natural greenery. Like, so I really do appreciate that, but you're still huffing it. And we tried to be as efficient as possible with as little backtracking, but we were ready to come home and put our feet up. So,
Yeah, I feel like with Disney World, we often say it's a marathon, not a sprint, because we really try to emphasize that you have to have downtime if you want to make
mhm.
it like the full week. But with Disneyland, the trips tend to be shorter. So it does feel a little bit more like a sprint.
Yeah. Yeah, it's intense.
It's intense and then you're tired. So when you got home on Sunday, that was your down day.
Yeah, and for us, like my husband's an educator, so he's on summer break, but like when we do Disneyland, I'm working up until the day before we go, and sometimes I'm actually working the day we leave. Like I'll
Mhm.
work Wednesday and we'll take a late night flight, but because it was summer and we wanted to do the pool, like I was like, no, well, I can. It's summertime for me. I can take the whole day and we can enjoy the pool and do that. So
Yeah.
quite intense.
Yes. So did you have a total cost for this trip
I
or
Yeah. I broke it out into a couple categories. So our room and ticket combo, which was 4 nights at the Disneyland Hotel, and I think we already talked about tickets. Our room ticket combination was $4,060.
and is this you had 2 rooms, right?
No, this is just our room.
This is for you. Okay.
Yes, yeah. Our dining, again, these are all just amounts for Adam, Meryl, and I. Those 4 dining events for the 3 of us were $900. Uh, Meals, so things other than those dining events, was 400. Snacks, so water, popcorn, churros, that was 80. Our Lightning Lane single passes for the 3 days, for the 4 single passes, I think we only ended up using 3, was 194. We spent $390 on souvenirs, $140 on transportation, so Lyft, airport parking, those kind of things. The pool rentals, that cabana was $575 for the day. The pool pods were $150 each. And yeah, then we just had miscellaneous things like in-flight Wi-Fi, that hydrogen peroxide run, those kind of little things was another $30. So
is it around 6,500 total?
excluding airfare,
Oh yeah, airfare would be extra.
yeah, so we're probably with the pool rentals, we were around 7,000 for this trip, about 6,000 without the pool rentals. So yeah, I'd say those dining events and the pool rentals were definitely like conscientious choices. They don't have to be done. And that's, like I mentioned, maybe when I was submitting my trip report, like with our parents, like we do try to plan those times to sit and eat and rest. So yeah.
And one interesting thing about Disneyland is that there's so many different levels of hotel prices available. So if 7,000 isn't in your budget, you can find something else that would be, that would be in your budget.
Yeah, for work, I'm in finance and we're going to Disney World in December. And I was looking at this trip in retrospect and again, trying to do some super nice things. I was like, oh, this Disney World trip actually might be on par with what we spent for these few days. But again, I think it was those pool rentals and those dining events. I don't think in Disney World we're doing 2 dining events in one day. Like that's just not how we want to spend our time. So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing the prices. People ask for them. So
yeah.
that'll be helpful to kind of know what to expect then. Okay.
Yeah, and I think you can stay off site at California. The on-site perks are not necessarily needed to warrant that difference in price because it can be up to $300-$400 a night difference.
It is, which is why we usually end up staying at the Anaheim Hotel. But if a good rate comes up for the on-site ones, it's a great chance to take advantage. So pros and cons.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else about this trip before we wrap it up?
No, it was just a great time. I'd encourage, just anyone who wants to go to Disneyland. It's a great time to go. The 70th celebration was really fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it sounds like you guys had a good time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for taking such great notes and taking the time to share, Jessica.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy my conversations with Jessica. I always like hearing about a Disneyland trip. We did continue talking on Patreon for the after chat, including I wanted to know how she felt about the lightning lane systems at Disneyland versus Disney World, about her trip to Paris, about her upcoming Disney World trip in December, etc., etc. So if you would like to hear that, it is up on Patreon right now in audio and video form. That'll wrap up this episode of WDW Prep to Go. For more information, please check the show notes in your podcast app or head to the website WDWPrepSchool.com. Click on podcast at the top, scroll down to episode 474. Until next time, I'll see you on the site.